Pacers beat LeBron and the Lakers with their best defensive performance of the season. That's how they smoked them. That's how they held the team to 90. They win without scoring 110 for the first time of the season. We'll break it all down today and talk about TJ McConnell's recent level on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, wearing black to support my Purdue supporting friends. Congratulations on the fun weekend through March Madness. I get to do this bit again next weekend. No IU next time, and not a fun opening day for the Phillies, but my Purdue friends, congrats to you. Let's talk about the Pacers and not Purdue today, who had an awesome win on Friday. They beat the Lakers in their house. Their defense was sublime. A lot of the best numbers-wise defensive stuff from the Pacers in that game. Aaron Nesmith was fantastic. TJ McConnell continued to be excellent. That's how you beat the Lakers in your house to stay in sixth in the East. We'll start, of course, with that game before we're talking about TJ McConnell and his recent level since the All-Star break to close out this show, because I finally started to ask some players about it. I'm curious what the team feels about it, and they gave me some good answers that are very much backed up by the data. But we start with Pacers-Lakers, with the Pacers holding a team to 90 points. 90 points. Far and away their lowest of the season. Previous best was 97 against Orlando earlier this month, and then they had that 99 points allowed game against Charlotte in February. Every other game for the Pacers has been over 190. That was the Lakers, I believe, lowest scoring game themselves this season. 109 for the Pacers. Not that great. I'll talk about the context of both numbers in just a second. But that's the Pacers' first win of the season where they scored less than 110. Technically, it's the Pacers' first win of the season, scoring less than 111. Previously 0-18 in those games. Unhappy with a game where they kind of struggled offensively until this one, where they get it done. And numerically, again, a wonderful defensive game for the Pacers, who held the Lakers to 40.7% from the field, 16.7% from three. Now, some of that's just missing. Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell were 1 for 13. Some of those were contested looks. Some of them were not. They kept them off the foul line, way more defending without fouling. That will be a big thing we talk about in just a second. And did a lot of other key stuff stylistically that helps your defense, even if it isn't necessarily defensively focused. Just a brilliant defensive game from the Pacers. Let's add two bits of context that kind of put this all together in this game, right? Wednesday, I defended the Pacers a little bit when they got smoked by the Bulls. I said that was their third and four nights all on the road. Those are tough. Those can be damaging to your offense and your energy. And the Pacers did terrible that night. They had their low scoring night of the season. Well, the Pacers benefited from that a little bit on Friday when the Lakers were on their third and four nights on the road. That's not why they won. They destroyed the Lakers, and that's not why they lost to the Bulls. But you can see both sides of the token in back-to-back games. What I will say about this Lakers game that potentially was impacted by some scheduling stuff is the pace was part of the raw totals. This was a slower paced game, which for the Pacers is pretty rare. 89 shot attempts for the Pacers and 86 for the Lakers. So pretty low, like actually raw up and down numbers in this game compared to a typical Pacers game where it's typically closer to 100, or if you add in the free throw possessions, it's well over 100, right? Because those don't count as shots. 80s for both teams says a lot about the speed this game was played at. For reference, the Pacers typically not that far under 80. They've been 24 times under 80 shots this season, 89 tying for the high end of that. And their opponents are typically, similar-ish, but about that. So like a third of their games end up at roughly this pace. The reason it's different this time, though, is the Pacers had 8 turnovers, right? So there wasn't a lot of transition opportunities. The foul numbers weren't crazy high versus a lot of the times the Pacers shoot lower, than 80 times in a game. It's because a lot of their shots become fouls, right? Like their lowest field goal attempt game of the season, they took 33 free throws that night. That was their win over the Magic in Orlando, for example, right? You could go on and on with all these numbers, but that's what happened, right? When they were playing without Haliburton, they were playing slow. That was a couple more of these, but in all of their games with their lowest field goal attempts, their free throws are in and above the 20s. In attempts, they took 14 in this Lakers game, right? So pace was a factor in the raw numbers of the score being low. But that's also why they defended well. They were able to use that energy to play half-court defense, to fight very hard for an entire possession. And that's what it took, was slowing the game down just a tiny bit. And the Lakers were okay with that, I think, given that they were on their third and four nights. But the Pacers did well to actually slow them down on a string all night. I thought it was really like they were locked in on the defensive end from the rotation and communication perspective. I don't know how serious these reactions were, but like after the game, I asked Aaron Nesmith, like, when did you know that your team was rolling on defense? Like, this was your best statistical night of the year for your team. He said, I didn't even realize it. I came out with 2 minutes to go and looked up. We had only allowed 88. Like, that's the first time he realized how effective they were defending. Andrew Nembhard did not know when I asked him after the game, like, hey, this is the lowest you guys have allowed all year. What do you think went into that? He's like, I didn't even know it was the lowest we've allowed all year. Like, that is that is the focus it took for the Pacers to do this. So the standout performer of this, as the Pacers get a win without dominating on offense and with a swarming defensive effort. Oh, I should add one more impressive thing about this for the Pacers. They gave up 150 to the same exact team 6 days prior. So throw out the 3 and 4 nights part if you must, because that's crazy. That is an insane drop in defensive abilities, even with way different levels of shooting. 60 points is crazy for the same team to score against the same opponent on a different day of the week. So the thing that stood out the most, Dustin Dopirak was all over this for his story in the Indy Star, and a lot of his post-game questions was Aaron Nesmith. Aaron Nesmith played 39 minutes and 20 seconds. No one else on the Pacers played more than 33, which was Tyrese Haliburton. So they barely played Doug McDermott. They barely played Jarace Walker. They just said, Aaron, go play defense, go play the 3. The reason that he, 1, played a lot, and 2, was able to play a lot was because he defended LeBron and did not foul him. 1 foul for Aaron Nesmith in 39 minutes defending LeBron James. That is a masterpiece of a performance. And the refs were letting the teams play a little physical in this game, but credit to the Pacers for, within those limits, defending without fouling, because, even throughout the season, we've seen Aaron Nesmith have that is probably the biggest knock on his defense right now as a player, is his foul rate, right? I believe it's still his highest fouls per 36 of his career. It's actually his lowest now. That's funny. At one point this month, Aaron Nesmith was at his highest fouls per 36 of his career. He is now, the margins are thin, but still, the margins are now so thin that it's down to the lowest, but 1 foul. The previous 3 games that he played, he had 4 fouls, 5 fouls, and 4 fouls. If you've been watching Aaron Nesmith, you know that he fouls a lot. He did wonderfully well in this game too. He had 5 against LeBron James in 26 minutes and 42 seconds last Sunday. This time, way better. Way, way, way better. And that was huge for the Pacers. LeBron, 4 free throw attempts. We had 16 points on 12 shots. And the star defense in general for the Pacers was much better. Anthony Davis' stat line, still incredible. 24 points and 15 boards on only 17 shots. But they made him work like crazy on the other end of the floor. He didn't have any steals or blocks, and he had 3 turnovers. So a way different game than the 36 and 16 he had 5 days earlier. Credit to the Pacers post defenders in general for doing much better in that matchup. Turner did have 4 fouls, but he also just did much better defensively in this game. And Nesmith and Turner combined for 22 points. So they contributed on both ends, even though the keys to their success came on the defensive end, slowing the stars, making LeBron's life hard, making Davis less effective. And it helps that Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell did not get a sliver of space. And when they did, they didn't make anything. That's how you win a game against a team that beat you 5, 6, whatever days ago. You're connected, you're communicating, your defense is locked in, and you're not fouling against a team that, of course, crushed you with a free throw disparity 5 games earlier. Credit to the Pacers. They don't normally win this kind of game. In fact, they haven't at all if you just look at the score numbers. But this sort of pace, the Pacers did not shoot very well, 32.3% from deep. They only had 6 offensive rebounds. There were a lot of stats that said, they didn't do that great. But they dominated the turnover game. Their defense was amazing, and they limited the Lakers stars. That is how you get this kind of win. Plenty more to dissect from Pacers-Lakers as the Pacers climb over 41 wins. We'll talk about that and plenty more from this game before getting some TJ McConnell numbers going to as Locked On Pacers continues. But first, we need to talk about Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. You just pick more or pick less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. March is over, but the biggest moments in college basketball tip off in the month of April. Be a part of the action on Prize Picks for both men's and women's college basketball. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game up to a new level during basketball's postseason. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks. As little as 4 correct picks, you can now turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. How do you play? It's simple. Pick a player, pick the stat, pick more than or less. There you go. Anthony Davis, for example, more than or less than 2 blocks. Pacers just saw him. LeBron James, more than or less than 7 assists. Those lines would have been pretty close for the game the Pacers just played. Download the app Prize Picks today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks. Again, that is downloading the Prize Picks app today and using the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And we are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day for your second listen. Check out Locked On Lakers. Hear what the Kamenetsky twins have to say about Pacers, Lakers. Kamenetsky brothers, twins? I don't exactly know that. I should ask them. Anyway, they'll talk Pacers, Lakers from the Lakers' perspective as they were on a 5-game winning streak in LA before the Pacers knocked them off Friday night and then get 2 days off before playing the Nets tonight. We can talk a little bit of keys of that game in a second if we need to, but we don't need to. The Nets are not playing very good right now. They just lost to the Lakers on Sunday. The Pacers also weren't awful on offense. Obviously, the defense was the story, but in a slower paced game where they didn't take that many shots and didn't take that many free throws, to score 109 is actually a little impressive. And they did very well to attack the paint, not being afraid of Anthony Davis in this game. That's scary. That's not like an easy thing to do, but they up to their points in the paint from their last game against the Lakers. In general, we're finding slivers of places to score with their mid-range attacks. Guys who are the best on this team at scoring in, let's say 4 to 10 feet. One of them is TJ McConnell, who we're going to dive into his shooting, air quotes, you'll see why in a second, numbers to close out today's show. But he was phenomenal. And I think he had the game-changing stretch to me. TJ McConnell finishes this game with 16 points on 11 shots, only made 1 free throw. And so that's why the shooting on the shots number matters. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, right? And most Pacers bench players had a negative plus minus in this game. TJ McConnell's was even, right? He played with starters more than normal. He played with other ball handlers. Pacers were not starting this game great. They were behind the Lakers in the first quarter, down 5, down 2, down 3. McConnell and the bench come in. Lakers go zone. You can see all their coaches put up a fist. I'm guessing that's their call for zone. And TJ McConnell just dribbled right through the top 2 guys of the zone and drilled a free throw line-ish jumper, right? And that was kind of the moment I knew, okay, he's about to have a big first half. And the bench kept the Pacers lead for basically the whole time they were in. Starters came back in, and they had the advantage. They got it up to 6, and they dominated the second half. McConnell, in that key stretch, late in the first and early second quarter, was the Pacers' offense. He was the only guy who could really score with the second unit during that stretch. He had 11 points and took 7 shots in under 10 minutes in the first half, plus 5. Jalen Smith took 1 shot. Obi Toppin had a nice first half. But that was huge for the Pacers that he was able to do that. He was the Pacers' leading scorer at halftime of this game. It was a 5-point game at halftime. It was close, and McConnell was such a big part of it. In the second half, he wasn't. He was still effective, but that stretch in particular really opened up and changed the game to let the Pacers get rolling to start the second half. And you're seeing this a lot more from TJ McConnell this season. Again, we will talk about that to close out today's show. But he was such a standout performer to me, and that stretch continues to happen. And the other thing happened again. Not as dramatic this time. In fact, a little more, bite your teeth if you're a Pacers fan in this one, where the fourth quarter starts and the Pacers go all bench and the opposing team goes with the stars, right? The fourth quarter opens. Pacers have Ben Shepherd, Jalen Smith, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, Aaron Nesmith on the floor, right? Aaron Nesmith very often on the floor in this game. So that's a bench group, right? And when the fourth quarter started, the Pacers were up by 14. So they probably feel pretty good about what that lineup's going to do. The other side of the court, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Rui Hachimura, and Taurean Prince, like that is a precarious situation. That's scary. And I just talked about this with other guests. I dove into the numbers, but this did not have Siakam in it. Still, dominant stretch for this group. At first, the Lakers chopped into it. They cut it to 9 in just over 2 minutes. And then the Pacers made a sub. Andrew Nembhard came in for Ben Shepherd with 9:13 to go. Still a 9-point game. And then the Pacers responded. It got to 7, and then it was 11, and then it was 13, and then it was 15. That just like that. That group continues to do this, where somehow, some way, that bench group is able to hold off opposing teams' stars, starting lineups, whatever, for long enough for Siakam and Haliburton to come in. What actually helped them a little in this game, ironically enough, a Jalen Smith flagrant foul early in that fourth quarter, with 8:44 to go in the quarter. The Lakers cut it to 9 just before that. There was a really long review, and it got Anthony Davis 2 free throws and the Lakers the ball. That's when it got to 7. That was the closest it was in the fourth quarter when he made those free throws. But the review was so long, Rick Carlisle brought in Haliburton, Turner, and Siakam. And so technically you could say after the free throws, it was a 7-point game when those guys came in. And it was very quickly, like I said, like less than 2 minutes to go. It's 96-85, an 11-point game. Haliburton hits a floater, and they roll to the victory. Like that review actually helped them steal the rest they needed to put the game away. But the bench continues to do this thing where they just can hold off any combination of opponent 5, and maybe it'll die eventually as a trend because they're usually on paper the less talented group, but it's such a long-standing thing that keeps happening that it can't be written off. It can't be said, oh, this is just a fluke. No, this is a thing. This Pacers bench group clicks together and can hang with any group. And so I keep looking at it. I keep writing it down in my notes. This is a key stretch, and they keep winning it. The other thing that happened in this game, Pacers size held up against the Lakers size. Usually that has been a problem for them at the guard spots, specifically when it's a guard being defended by Taurean Prince, when it's a guard being defended by Cam Reddish, by Rui Hachimura, whatever. Those guys were way less effective in this game, and the guard play for the Pacers was solid. Haliburton hit 3 threes, which is big for him, 3 for 8 from deep. He was 7 for 15 in general on his way to 21 points. I already talked about McConnell. Ben Shepherd hit shots in this game. He knocked down 3. Andrew Nembhard was 4 for 9 on his way to 10 points. That also really helped the Pacers keep the ball rolling, neutralizing the size advantage when they can penetrate the lane much better. But I could talk about Siakam at 22, 11, and 6 to close out a brilliant March. Like I could go through every player if I wanted. A lot of little stuff mattered in this game. But if the Pacers defend like that, they can beat just about anybody, right? That has been the separator for them. And I think now, I am recording this on now, April 1st. I believe now that the Pacers have wrapped up March with an above-average defense for an entire month of the season because they closed it on such a strong note. I will double-check while I finish this segment. But it speaks volumes of what they're able to do on that end of the floor and hitting their peak in the final game. Yes, the month of March is over, and the Pacers 113.4 defensive rating in the month, ranked 14th. 14th for a whole month. Their net rating was 12th because their offense actually wasn't as impressive as it normally is. It was still very good, 8th in the NBA. But to have an above-average defense and a top 10 offense is a good formula. Some clutch losses really hold down their record despite those numbers, but their defense closed strong, and that is how everybody else kind of fell into place, right? They weren't even in transition that much. They just didn't let the Lakers get in transition. They dominated a slow-paced game. They got into the lane. They neutralized the size advantage. Aaron Nesmith was awesome. That's how you win. I've gone too long on the Lakers game. Let's talk about TJ McConnell, who I already mentioned part of the reasons he was fantastic. But I want to dive into some numbers about his terrific play since the All-Star break to close out today's show. But first, we have to talk about Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV Stick, which I own one, that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you are going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On, most of the big pro sports leagues, and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on the Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. And we are back here on the Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day for your second listen. Check out Locked On Rockets. One, because I just recorded a segment of Locked On NBA with host Jackson Gatlin. And two, the Rockets won 10 games in a row. That streak got snapped on Sunday, but that's crazy. Hear about their loss to the Mavs and 10 wins in a row for the Rockets over on Locked On Rockets. We're done with Pacers-Lakers. Quite the performance from the Pacers. They'll hope to repeat that against the lowly Nets tonight at home, but a quality of opponent be danged for this Pacers team this season. They still need to focus up and get a win against the Nets team that has been flimsy on both ends for a lot of the season. Let's talk about TJ McConnell. I mean, here's something that happened recently that was really interesting to me. I can't remember which game it was. McConnell had a good game. I had notes about it. But I didn't talk about him that much on one of these episodes. And I got a tweet and a YouTube comment on the same day saying, hey, you didn't talk about TJ McConnell was not talked about enough in this episode. Like, he won the Pacers the game. He was awesome in the stretch, whatever. And I was like, yeah, he did play well. Like, why didn't I talk about him more? And my first thought I had, I don't want to give myself credit. Like, if I should have talked about a player more, that's on me, was he kind of like has a new expectation. Like, he's been playing so well since the All-Star break that even games that would have looked good for him in, say, December, I'm just like, oh yeah, 16 points again for TJ McConnell. That's like that sounds crazy to say it's been what's expected, but it's not. That's one more made basket than his points per game average since the All-Star break. And so maybe that's not why it happened in that game in particular, but for him to stand out now, he's got to score like a lot, like 11 points in one half for me to go, oh my gosh, he's dominating this game in ways that he normally doesn't, because he's been that good since the break. So reliable. And the reasoning for this, if you remember, well, this isn't the reason for this. Part of the reason for this is, if you remember, we talked about this on the show with guests, and I talked about this after going down to Orlando and watching them play the Magic. Mathurin got hurt early in the March, and I said, there's going to be a lot of guys who play more, right? Jarris will play more. McDermott, when he comes back. Ben Shepherd has played more. But to me, the big winner, air quotes, in terms of what they'll do on the court is McConnell. He's going to have the ball more. He's going to be trusted more to do stuff. And he has been amazing with more responsibility in terms of scoring, in terms of running the second unit and playing really well. So let's talk generic, and then we'll get more focused. So since the All-Star break, right? Just since the All-Star break, this includes when Mathurin was playing and all sorts of other in and outs and stuff. TJ McConnell is currently averaging 13.3 points per game. Crazy to see that. For reference, his career average is 7.4 per game, right? He's shooting 57% from the field, 56.9 in that stretch, 61.1% from three, obviously unsustainable, but he's making some, and 85% from the foul line, 1.5 turnovers, 4.8 assists, 1.1 steals, 2.8 rebounds. Awesome. Terrific in that span. You can even laser it a little more and do the post Ben Mathurin stretch. They played Minnesota in the first game without Mathurin, and McConnell only played 11 minutes and 41 seconds that game. The rotation was a little odd. Jarris played a bunch. They had just come back from a road trip. If you take out the Minnesota game and just say March 10th through the end of the month, the last 11 games, McConnell's numbers go to 13.9 points per game. Still crazy splits. 54.5, 54 from three, 83.3 from the foul line. It's 14 points per game for 11 games, right? So a 16-point game is like he made one more shot that night. Like that's not that insane. So he had 16 against the Lakers and it was awesome. I think it was I can't remember which game it was that I didn't give him enough credit, but the comments were right. I did not. So he has been playing obviously unbelievable from a scoring perspective. I asked Rick Carlisle about it in Chicago, and after the Lakers game, again, he was pretty complimentary of it. But also he mentioned some of it's like that his minutes are up, and that's true. His minutes are up. That is a factor. But per 36 minutes, TJ McConnell's career high in points per 36 minutes entering this season was 15.3. That was last year. Before last year, he had never even cracked 13. Right now, TJ McConnell's at 19.4 points per 36 minutes. That's insane. That is insane. He's not even at a career high in terms of field goal percentage, although it's higher. He's not at a career high in 2-point percentage, although it's close. he's doing a lot of stuff well that we'll get to in a second. But statistically, especially in the last month and a half, he's been unbelievable. You could argue Pacers' third or fourth best player since the All-Star break, right? It's been just ridiculous how good he's been. And so when I was asking some players about it after the game, some in the locker room, some at the podium, a lot of them came back to a similar theme that I didn't really I don't think of the way TJ McConnell is scoring in this way, but when they said it, I thought, oh, that is right. Tyrese Halliburton was the first one to say it. He said he's turned into a jump shooter. He's a jump shooter. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'd go that far, because when you think of a jump shooter, you think of long twos or threes or whatever. And that's true. That is part of jump shooting. But TJ McConnell's taking jump shots from in the lane and making them a lot. And it's really hard to defend that shot for these defenders who don't want him to get to the paint where he's awesome or can make awesome passes. So they're willing to live with it. And then he just makes a gazillion of them. And then you have no answer for what he can do. So let's dive into some numbers. This season, right now, TJ McConnell from 0 to 3 feet is shooting 73.8% at the rim. That is insane for a player of his size. That is a career high. He was at 69% his last season in Philly. Outside of that, he's never been above 66%. He was at 65% and 64% 2 of his seasons with the Pacers. 74% right now. That is unbelievable efficiency. So when he gets to the rim, he's such a threat. We all know what he can do on layups. But that little fall away midi is a shot that only he has. One of the most unique shots in the NBA. A lot of guys can take that shot, but at his height, it just looks different. It's harder. It's more arc. 53.7% from 3 to 10 feet. I'll have more numbers on this in a second. He's been at about that range for his time with the Pacers in his career. In fact, that's actually his second worst percentage as a member of the Pacers from that range. The difference is he's taking way more of them. As a percentage of all of his shots, 40% are coming from 3 to 10 feet. It's never been that high ever in his career. He's also taking 25.5% from 10 to 16 feet. That's the third highest of his career, making 45% of those. So in a way, calling him a jump shooter is kind of right, even though his three-point attempt rate this season is the lowest it's been since his first season with the Pacers, which was 2019-20, right? So even though he's making them now, he's still taking fewer threes. He is jump shooting in the lane. He's literally jump shooting from 4 feet and out and making them all the time. And defenders just don't have an answer for it, don't know what to do with it. And the clip he's making them at is just absolutely ridiculous. Less than 30% of his twos are assisted. Like, he is just carving teams up at a high level. And his true shooting percentage is 58% for a guy who doesn't take that many threes and doesn't get to the line that much. That's unbelievable. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. So I wanted to dig more into this, obviously, because I'm a data nerd. But that is where the change has happened in his scoring, right? You could talk about him playing more, but the reason his per minute number is higher is because he is just lighting up these jump shots, which has been crazy to see. So since the All-Star break, TJ McConnell, 371 minutes, is shooting from short mid-range. So this is not the numbers I just said are the whole season. Short mid-range is classified. I'm on the wrong tab. Short mid-range is classified by our lovely friends at PBP Stats. I have to now switch tabs because I was apparently on the wrong one. He is shooting 51%. That's from 4 to 14 feet. That's unbelievable. Like, that's a decent enough 3-point shot, right? He is just lighting it up on 54 for 106 in that range. He's just lighting it up from there, making corner threes, 50% and above the break threes, and finishing very well at the rim, 72.3% since the All-Star break, which is funny because his shot quality, right, given where he takes them from and all that, the way that it's tracked for most places, is pretty low. His rim or three frequency, right, the percentage of his shots he's taking either at the rim or from three is 41%. With him on the floor, that's by far the lowest on the Pacers. Most guys are well over 50%. It's crazy, but he's making them. He's turned into a jump shooter, and he's making them. And that is an unbelievable change for TJ McConnell. But he's been so good for the Pacers. He was great the first half against the Lakers. He continues to be very important with Benedict Mathurin out. And if he keeps making those weird fall-away shots, those shots in the lane, and finishes at the rim, he will continue to be that level of impactful as a scorer. And that doesn't even account for his passing, peskiness, leadership. Terrific player, playing very well right now. And he'll play tonight, as will the Pacers against the Brooklyn Nets in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. We'll have all that tomorrow on this show and plenty more to discuss. Third segment, we'll probably spotlight another player, as we will heading into the playoffs on the show often. Wednesday show, Alex Golden will join us. Thursday show, we'll talk about Pacers Nets round 2 and do standings watch for this week. This week, we'll keep doing a theme. We'll be focused on matchups, what the Pacers can and likely can't get as their first round opponent. We've done tiebreakers last week. We did likely number of wins to get certain seeds the week before. This week will be about matchups. And then Friday, we'll, of course, have another guest, TBD on who it is, looking ahead at various topics about the Pacers. Lots of fun stuff coming here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East, and the show's there at Locked On Pacers. Thank you guys for listening. Have a wonderful day. We will see you soon.